You're welcome back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. I'm Samson Ladi Anyanini. Now, it's 2 days after the budget in the economic policy statement for 2019 was revealed to all of the citizens of Ghana and the world at large. The man behind that is here in the studio to assist us better understand what it is that is in the budget statement. So, unlike the traditional way that I do here on Newsfile after the budget is read, I shelve my views and allow yours. So you ask the questions and we test the budget against your reality. So what exactly is your reality? That's what we're looking at this morning as far as the budget statement is concerned. Now, I have a first hour during which I'm engaging the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta. And after that, we will be joined by former Finance Minister Setekpe and a couple of other finance experts and economists, professors, to better break down the budget. So you're welcome. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And as you know, here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. Good morning and welcome to Newsfile.
Thank you very much, Samson.
Great.
Good morning. It's good to be here.
Good morning. We are happy to have you here in the studio this morning. Now, you were very clear in part of your budget speech in stating very clearly that we are presently doing a hand-to-mouth existence, which we need to move away from, and for which you have outlined a number of bold, very ambitious steps to get there. In fact, you yourself describe some of these, steps as ambitious, and that people may see them as overly ambitious. To start with, I'd like to make a quote from paragraph 273 of your statement, and that's your concluding part, marching boldly towards Ghana beyond aid. And you say, Mr. Speaker, with December 2018 as the last test date, we are on track to successfully complete and exit the IMF ECF program. We have clearly demonstrated our competence in managing Ghana's economy in the past 2 years that we have been in government. We will remain steadfast in this resolve. To this end, we are putting in place a number of legal and institutional measures to ensure we do not revert to the bad days of macroeconomic mismanagement. Then you begin by telling us one of the key measures that you are institutionalizing is the social partnership among organized labor, Ghana Employers Association, and government, which we believe will provide avenue for partners to deliberate on significant development matters and providing relevant solutions. Yep. What are the 6 strategic pillars in this 2019 budget that you are so sure will help advance boldly towards the Ghana beyond aid?
Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be here. And good morning to you all. I think really, Samson, in Akufo-Addo's government assuming governance in January, we met some strong headwinds, and essentially we put it in about 5 buckets of expenditure, revenue, interest rate issues, earmarked funds, and wages and salaries as, what really was ailing the economy. And in that then was also to see whether we could have a certain degree of sort of policy clarity, transparency, and accountability going forward, and kind of work hard because it can be done. So we've gone through these 22 odd months, and I think we will all admit as a nation that it's a far cry from January 2017, you know, whichever side of the aisle you sit on, whether you believe inflation can be eaten or not, and whether my pockets are empty. Because clearly, Samson, we have been able to move the deficit from 9.3 to 5.9, going on to 4.5 this year. Inflation from 15.4%. I think we are 9.5 as of October. And I guess maybe even the longest period of a single-digit inflation for a while. The debt, in terms of debt to GDP, has come down below 73% as we started. And really, if you were to net out what we've done with the banking crisis, you see a great reduction in that. So the question then is, you know, the first budget was a Sempa budget. How do we create economic freedom by eliminating these nuisance taxes and get people energized to work and expecting a supply response? Because in the situation you are in, it's not the time that you cut taxes. It's kind of counterintuitive. But if you believe in the people's response to entrepreneurship, you take that risk. And I think we've been justified by doing that. And then in that too was President's key issue of preferential option for the poor. In as much as you want to grow, let's leave no one behind at any point in time. And the risk of that is worth taking. And therefore interjecting senior high school education, which is not cheap. But then when you even compare it to the type of debt and interest that we are paying, that were given to us now somewhere around 16 billion, how can you justify not investing in the human capital of your people, which is the most sustainable? So people talking about it being too expensive, President will ask, whose child do you want to leave behind? Okay. And are we all citizens that should benefit from however small a pot we have? And those are choices that we have made. So at the end of the period, Samson, we are in a place where we can be confident that we are extricating ourselves from the IMF ECF program. There's no one who has not benefited from the 22 months with regards to senior high school, nurses training allowances, teacher training allowances, you know, just name it, reduction in taxes, electricity prices coming down 30% for corporate, 17% for individuals. So you are seeing, in my mind, a much more caring government.
Right. We will keep to the big picture that I began on, but when we say, and you have been repeating that, about having to celebrate exiting the IMF program, what does that mean to me? What does it mean that my country is exiting the IMF program? What does that mean?
Well, I think something that there's a certain subliminal sense that your sovereignty is being managed, and that can be oppressive just as a national. Beyond that, of course, is, I mean, we went into the IMF program voluntarily, i.e. we as a nation had acknowledged that we were mismanaging our economy and we needed a school headmaster. And that is what we inherited. And this is kind of the second time the MPP government comes to inherit an IMF program of some sort from the NDC, covers the whole, begins to build, they take it over again, we are back in it. So we are back in that.
Yeah, so and what that means, if we're known to mess up and seek help, and therefore have to be monitored and guided as to how we use the help we get, what does it mean to get out of IMF?
Well,
Really?
we should not be known to do that. And it's only the other party that brings us into that. And I want that to be very clear. We always come and take us out. So what does that mean going forward? It doesn't mean, I mean, for me, the eternal fiscal discipline must be something that we inculcate ourselves. And it is when you don't do it yourself that somebody maybe comes in to legislate that. So what does it mean? It means that we look at our resources, revenue and expenditure, and manage it in a way that is not profligate. And that's what we have to do. But because of the history that we have had, the president is saying, you know, let's put some buffers into this nation. And therefore, we introduce the fiscal rule so that no government can go beyond 5%.
We're speaking about the fiscal, you know, regime, the legal regime, for over a decade, as far as I can remember. We've never had it.
Well, so now we are going to institutionalize it, so it will be law. We are also going to have a fiscal council so that the numbers at Ministry of Finance can be looked at by another group that, you know, has eminence. We're going to continue with the zero financing from the central bank so that monetary policy is also protected. And then truly, with the record of the past 22 months, I think the continual vigilance that we have is going to be, I think maybe one of the key issues, and therefore the Achilles heel for some of this, is the issue of wages and salaries as a bucket, and also domestic revenue mobilization, which really in the end depends on us as to whether you, Samson, file your taxes and pay, whether everybody has the opportunity to contribute towards paying taxes, because you are now a citizen, and if government is fulfilling its social contract of these services that we have given, everybody should be part of that. And I think maybe that may be one of the key issues that we have to work as we talk about Ghana Beyond Aid with the media, to just propagate a sense of citizenship and your responsibility to what you pay to Caesar, and our capacity to also deliver to you.
Okay, so the biggest mantra, and the president has received a lot of applause from his peers across the globe for that, particularly in his that encounter with Emmanuel Macron. Now, we have had the presence of mind to set up even a committee to deal with giving us a policy to guide what we call the Ghana Beyond Aid. And that is the auspices under which you intend to function. So back to that question I asked you first. You spoke about some 6 strategic pillars in the budget that will put us in a position to advance boldly towards the Ghana Beyond Aid. So how exactly are these pillars you speak about going to take us into a Ghana Beyond Aid? And what are the timelines that we're expecting, if any? You speak about making an unprecedented push in infrastructure expansion, modernizing agriculture, increasing production and reducing our dependence on import for food, forging ahead with a bold and comprehensive industrialization plan that adds value to our agriculture and natural resources, and leverages our rising population of educated youth, strengthening our domestic revenue mobilization and taking strong measures to enforce efficiency in public expenditure and protect the public purse, and building on and strengthening our social interventions in order to ensure that no one is left, you just said that a while ago, repeated that a while ago, no one is left behind as we transform our economy and march boldly to Ghana Beyond Aid. English. Translate that for me. This is English I just read, correct?
And that does not strike you in any way. The world was created by words, was that right?
That's right.
It's English. and you have to, I think, you know, the issue really of we as a country beginning to believe that we are not where we should be, and we are much bigger people than that. I remember this agri statement which said that there was an eagle that sort of grew up as a chicken and forgot that it was an eagle. I think we need to be flying out of this. But I think that the issue really, Samson, is one of recognizing that we are at a certain junction, and that is important. We have, if we are all going to be honest with ourselves, done tremendously well as a country these 22 months in terms of moving. And President is saying that, you know, the black star must shine again. So we started with the Asempa budget, which was a good news to people to give economic freedom for people to operate. We then came to the Ajuma budget, which we are closing with the NAPCO 100,000 jobs for graduates, which really, I think sometimes people belittle it, but there's nothing on the continent or in our country the past 50 years or so which has tackled this problem so frontally. So there's a certain sense of stability. And the question now is the bold move ahead that you are talking about. So we look at infrastructure as a key intervention because we need to open up the country. And this is where we talk about rail, in which we are using $1 billion of the CDB money to make sure that we open that up. Then we talk about roads and bridges with the Sino-Hydro transaction, which then immediately, starting from this year, we begin to see us approaching that. We have put together $1 billion or so to look at industrialization, and therefore the actualization of 1D, 1F, the current state of VW and Nissan and Sinotruk coming in, moving towards really something, Ghana becoming a hub. You know, Ghana has certain special qualities which are not replicable on the West Coast. You know, just the nature of the people, the pillar of stability in terms of democracy, but we have not really deliberately looked to capitalize on that. And for me, I see areas as education, fintech, logistics and airports as just natural areas, and tourism that we can have that type of stuff, because we need to shield our foreign exchange. We need to be able to draw foreign exchange in much bigger so there's stability, and we do not, you know, get a cold when the emerging markets sneeze. But then what can you, how do you in the end really actualize that? And it's a human capital, and that then is the interjection. So I think it's for the nation to begin to have a big conversation on this, and really to stop thinking that we are chickens as opposed to being eagles, and to believe in it. And true, you might say 22 months, maybe I have not personally gotten enough of it, but can you truly say that, you know, when you have 271,000 new people in school, when nurses are now being paid, when NHI, we have cleared all the arrears from 2014 to now. So there can be sort of continual cynicism about it, but I think the conversation that the President has begun about the Ghana Beyond Aid, you know, should prompt all of us to say, how do we do things differently to be able to achieve that? I mean, for the first time, Samson, S&P upgraded us to a B stable status. It hasn't happened, you know, in a decade. We went to the capital markets this year, and we had a remarkable hat trick. You know, we had the longest duration of 30 years. We've extended our curve. We had the lowest interest rate for our bonds that we've ever had, you know, and sort of the largest amount that we've ever been to. So you are seeing these green shoots of recovery. And I think it's easy to be cynical about it, but as a national, you know, sitting back and saying, okay, there are going to be some sacrifices,
Okay.
but these guys have remained true to what they promised.
Right. So, like I promised you, I've sought views, questions from people who have some expertise, and also from the ordinary, Ghanaian, and to check your statements against their reality.
Yes.
There's one that I'll bring to you, which appears to cut across for a number of people, about the basket from which we are seeking to generate or to get funds for some of the bolder projects that you intend to do, and the phobia that because of past experience, there's no guarantee that you're not going to get that. You are going to get that money, and if you don't, what is going to happen to the things you have put on the budget? But to start with, you speak about sacrifices that we have made up to this point, and we are going to continue to make for the purposes of achieving these ambitious goals that you set for yourself. When you say we have sacrificed over the 22 months and all of that, what are the sacrifices you refer to? What are they? What can we be pointed to represent those sacrifices?
Well, the question, really emanating from yours is if people are saying that their realities are different from that, then that must be their personal sacrifices.
Okay.
Okay. And that's important to acknowledge that. For example, last year we had a 35% tax on 10,000 marginal income after that, and people felt that it was oppressive. So that was a sacrifice in which we have done. And when you have revenues that are less than your projected expenditure, clearly you are cutting certain things to make sure that in the long run certain macro stabilities are obtained. So we cannot get it all done in one fell swoop, and that therefore must be so. But I think that there has to be a strength of mind as to where we want to emerge.
Okay, so I'm keeping to my promise now. And Kweku Buesiako asked the question. He says, on property rates, revenue mobilization for MMDAs, what is government's plan to acquire mapped data of all properties based on which government would be able to achieve the plans set out in paragraphs 232 and 233? If you like, let me read 232 and 233 to you. Now, in 232, this is what you talk about: local government revenue and finances. Mr. Speaker, in 2019, the central government will partner MMDAs to enhance revenues mobilized at the local government level. This partnership will be in the following areas: 1, property registration and property data management, the use of simplified, inexpensive tools for property valuation, the setting up of a system for the generation and distribution of bills, and the setting up of a system for the efficient collection of property rates and other rates. In addition, the Ministry of Finance will strengthen its oversight over public revenue management in MMDAs. An electronic payment platform will be put in place to automate the collection and administration of rates in all local government entities, and to give central government a comprehensive view of the finances of the MMDAs. If you did this, some will dare say we should be able to rake in sufficiently enough to be able to say that the Ghana Beyond Aid mantra is more than mere rhetoric. So he's asked the question.
Yeah, but Samson, I mean, and that really signifies to you sort of the answer. Do we really not have the revenue capacity to do what we want to do? And I dare say we do. Okay, so I live in a nice leafy place in Cantonment or Labone, and maybe I pay 800 cedis a year for a property that, I don't know, maybe $1 million or something. And that is not sustainable. Okay, and we have been unable to put in place a system where we can tax people appropriately for where they live. And this is what, we are going to focus on. So it sounds to me, Samson, that it's 2 years of understanding where we are and honestly giving everybody a little bit of what we have in one way or the other, and also proving to the international community that, we can manage ourselves. Now we are looking into ourselves and saying, okay, where are the leakages and where are the obvious places that we can collect revenue so that districts and municipalities are functioning properly and government can focus on the bigger picture. And this is one area we are going to tackle. I think I also talked about some restructuring and management at GRA and saying, are we satisfied with not meeting our goals annually, even though in reality, I think every year we've gone up since we came about 15 to 20% over the previous year. So it's not, sort of a terrible situation.
We've spoken about these pathetic property rates over a long time now.
Yeah.
That's just one example. But at the core of his questioning is, what is government's plan to acquire mapped data of all properties? Because you're talking about having a comprehensive view of all of these.
We launched the digitalization and addressing of everything. So, that's a reality.
The Ghana Post GPS.
Yeah, so that's the beginning of building that database to then begin to be able to evaluate. So something has been done. Sometimes my frustration is the denial of activity that has occurred or the denial of the numbers and then pose a question on it, which seems like nothing is happening. And I think that is depressing, and it's not good for our psyche.
People are speaking about their reality. Reality is not about...
but the reality...
It's not about, it seems like nothing is happening.
No. This question in particular...
They comments on such an aggressive, posture, telling everybody about how they were going to go about doing these mappings and get the numbering done properly.
Do you have one?
I have one. I generated it myself because that's what is supposed to be done.
Yeah.
But clearly, they seem to have lost steam. They have gone to sleep. You barely hear anything about the awareness that they need to create to get people to buy in.
Okay.
People are going to register for the NIA, for the Ghana card, and they are being asked to supply their Ghana Post GPS addresses, and they don't have them.
But they can generate them, is that right? Or help you generate them. Well, I think we can beat ourselves hoarse with, inefficiencies that we have for 60 years done and the change that is happening. But the issue is to support and promote, and that for me is a psychosis that we need to confront. So yes, there's a team specifically working on the issue of property rates. I've met twice with Lands Valuation and Lands Commission, on exactly what we intend to do. And the intention was to pilot in a number of the regional capitals and then move on. Because it is true that there are resources there that we can tap
so
into.
People, and I discover even people who have, who you can say are experts in this area of economy and finance, seem to be pessimistic.
Okay.
The level of confidence in your ability as a government to actually receive and disburse the 2 billion batter money that we are expecting, because majority of the project you are basing them on this money, infrastructure that you intend to execute. Can you give a drawdown schedule? And this is not my question. These questions from people I've put together and summarized.
Yeah,
can you give a
fine.
drawdown schedule?
That's fine. I mean, we have drawn down in terms of the activities selected, the bridges and the roads and the regions that we intend to. This year we are expecting that once we go through Parliament with that, part of the Eastern Corridor, the Tamale interchange, the road to Nyinahini, and some roads in Western and Central region will kick off, and then we continue. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we came in and declared boldly that we're leaving the IMF and certain really remarkable targets for year-end 2017, and we achieved them. And that, and you know that.
Yes, you're looking for money
that.
from a source we have experienced may never come.
And the
we're
basis,
talking about the CBD loan.
No, but wait a minute.
Yes.
The CDB loan, what, $1 billion came to be used for Ghana gas, is that correct? And then $2 billion, you know, was left, and we are triggering it. So we will get it. And Sino Hydro, Vice President went, negotiations are done, the President went, we are going through Parliament, and you know that. So in terms of sources, that then poses a challenge. We came into government, Samson, and in March we were able to organize a $2.25 billion equivalent, which surprised everybody to no end. So I'm not sure. And then we have launched, floated what we call the Century Bond because of where we are going. And then we went to the market this year and did $2 billion beyond everybody's expectations. So to be fair, on the issue of capacity to raise financing, it's really difficult for me to appreciate where that cynicism will come from, and because that's the fact.
Well, there's basis for that anyway.
Yeah, so
because of past experience.
Yeah, but the past experience, you're talking about some other government that has done things differently, that you are experiencing. So judge Akufo-Addo, judge Ken Ofori-Atta, and say, okay, have they truly done what they said they would do? There's something that I would like to read to you, Samson. And it was one of these really remarkable statements by Roosevelt at Sorbonne. Pick it up sometime, where he was speaking to the elite and the middle class and saying, you know, it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasm, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. You know, we are at a serious junction of where it should be evidence-based. You know, so true, 50, 60 years of a nation's life has been up and down. But for us to deny what we as a nation have done in 22 months and therefore project it and give people less hope, you know, and despondency, I think it's really an injustice to where we are going.
Earlier, we'll get back to these matters about the broader picture of how we are going to get a Ghana Beyond aid. And this is just a subset of that. But earlier I asked you about what it meant to be exiting the IMF program.
Yeah.
If you pay attention to what the IMF appears to have been talking about in their last review in September, is there a reality we are looking at? The IMF said, quote, program performance has been affected by external and domestic factors. Available fiscal data through end July point to much expenditure front-loading on goods and services and lower than programmed revenue, especially VAT and import duty. On this basis, achieving end December fiscal targets hinges on strengthening both expenditure discipline and tax compliance beyond measures adopted in the mid-year budget review. I mean, these strict conditions, um, have you met them? Because that's the point.
We are on course. I mean, we are on course. What did we say we'll do? 4.5% year end. Before that, we are behind with revenue mobilization, you know. But I think we'll make quite a bit of it up. We have to manage our expenditure.
You're saying the prospect is real?
Yes, in terms of 4.5% at the end of it, we will make it something. Last year was 6.3, was that correct? And what did we do? We did 5.9.
Okay.
So, you know, it's just very difficult to understand the continuous cynicism in the face of evidence that suggests that we are trying hard. But it's not to say, and therefore your question about post-IMF, what does it mean? It is all of these things. It's just eternal discipline on how we manage our expenditure. And, you know, really, in terms of revenue mobilization, which the caller in suggested that there are resources in property that we could tap into. But more significantly, losses in corruption and leakages. And we as citizens actually not appreciating deeply, you know, our role in paying our taxes, which we are going to have some enforcement issues going forward.
Okay. Now, some rather, you know, basic matters that people want you to address. Yeah. And still a bit around the fund program. Now that you say we are about, and the prospects are real, that we are ending the fund program, are we going to see improvement in public sector recruitment? That's a big place that people are looking for, because the freeze.
It's a good question. I mean, the question that you throw back is, when you have your wages and salaries and compensation consuming 45% of your revenues, does anybody need to advise you? Does anybody need to advise you on how to manage further recruitment? And that's a conversation we as a nation should have.
Okay.
Samson, if 45% of the revenues of Joy FM was used to pay staff, and you have roads to build and you have hospitals to take care of, I'm sure you have a very different view of that. And the key issue really here is, how do you build the private sector to cascade in to be able to absorb that? I'm not sure we are looking for a social welfare state in which the state is so huge that it consumes all of us. And this is where the issue of our infrastructure push, so you can open up the economy, the planting for food and jobs, so that 1 million farmers will have fertilizer to increase production, and $1 billion into industry, so that 1D, 1F, and other FDI become a reality. It's what we do. So for us as a right to center party, beyond an acknowledgement that people are at the center of development, therefore the social services cannot be compromised, it's really building up the private sector, and therefore the need for a stable macro environment for us to progress.
Beyond the sentimental value, why do we need a national airline? This is Kwame asking.
The national airline, beyond the sentimental value, I think there are a number of options that are being...
We know how wasteful it's been, and just a drain on the public purse that you are seeking to protect.
Yeah, but you are assuming that we are going to own that airline. There are various models of doing that, where an efficient airline flies the Ghana flag, and you get all of the national pride you want. But at the same time, the issue of Ghana as a regional hub becomes important. So it's that combination.
So yes. What are we looking at?
So we are looking at all of those three. But likely team up with a company that does well, so that the costs, as you are suggesting, do not necessarily come to Ghana.
Team up, how?
Well, I mean, you have all these alliances that you know, KLM and Kenya, etc. You know, those are all options that can be talked about. Emirates, etc. So those are being examined. But I mean, you can be assured that where we are going, we are never going to do anything that will cost us because of sentiment.
Did you speak about a parcel of land for the creative industries? Kwame wants to know where exactly is it, and what would it be used for?
In terms of the village that the creative industry wants to build, you know, we have an experience where I can't reveal where it is, but we have acquired land for it, and the Minister of Tourism will be the one to launch it. I actually, during these budget hearings, was privileged to have the industry, the actors and actresses come to my office for us to discuss their role in the Ghana Beyond Aid and we as a regional hub. And it is really exciting with regards to how do we interpret our sociology for our people to reignite the sense of pride and make Ghana once again sort of the film center and a creative hub that the satellite.
What's the secret about not revealing which portion of Ghana?
Because they are deciding. I mean, it won't be too far from Accra. You know, all of those things. But I'm sure there are other things that you want to ask about.
Okay, so
rest assured
that we're going to do it. Based on the commitment to standardize the design of health facilities in Ghana.
Yeah.
He's very excited about the fact that you're going to concentrate on finishing what has been left unfinished.
Amen.
Rather than waste further money into doing new projects.
Amen.
Right. So he's saying that based on the commitment to standardize the design of health facilities in Ghana, is there a plan to do away with manual patient records, and how? If yes, does government have any idea on the number of adjusted years we lose as a country annually due to time wasting as a result of outpatient visits?
I mean, I have experiences in some local hospitals where by the time the doctor gets in, you know, maybe 50 prescriptions have already been done for malaria, etc., which is an incredible waste of time. But I think there has been an experiment or a pilot in the central region with that type of technology. And so the Minister of Health is pushing for us to see how we expand it nationally. But the issue of transformation cannot be done without technology. And I think it will save us an awful lot of money. So that's a big push for that in terms of digitizing. I think I talked about e-payments for all government services, etc., and our ability, therefore, to look in if it's health, to get expertise, not only from the village that you are in, but maybe the teaching hospitals can then be able to see because things are all computerized.
Francis is interested in something. He says last year you gave an indication that there was no increase at all in his tax obligation as far as VAT NHIA was concerned. But that wasn't the reality, that in fact you had increased VAT. Intelligently, that's what you did, correct?
I'm not sure, you know, about that. I mean, certainly in terms of trying to isolate NHIS and Get Fund.
Get Fund, yeah.
Yeah, we executed that and then dropped the VAT rate in a sense to 12.5%. Of course, it did not allow the input-output, and therefore manufacturers, you know, were complaining about that. So in actual sense,
it was increased?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, certainly there is an effect.
You should be sure about that. It was increased.
Certainly there is an effect.
It was increased. I collect VAT for the state. And
you
I can
do?
Say that
how do you collect VAT for the state?
It is increased. I practice from a law firm. Yes, and we collect
and you
VAT
file
for the
your
state.
taxes?
Yes, we do.
That's excellent.
Yes. We know for a fact that you were just being smart about it, being intelligent, and telling us that VAT had not received any increment. While in fact,
actually, Samson, let's play it back, okay? There was a huge hue and cry about increasing VAT, and we said we're not going to increase VAT.
But you did.
No, I might have. I increased in effect levies, but I didn't increase VAT, and that's a fact. And the issue, should the state not tax to be able to get the revenue it needs?
So they just want you to be candid with them. Jephthah Aputara says that the seed money for the cathedral, did the government lie to us? What is in government's the quantum that you're seeking to fund? In the seed money, you say preparatory works, among others. Initially, Minister Amewu was very categorical that there's no government involvement at all. The relocation of judges from the place and other institutions, rebuilding those institutions, and other private, companies that were there, removing them to other places. All of that was going to be borne by the churches. Actually, there was one of the church people, a pastor, a bishop, who had confirmed what he said. But from your budget statement, clearly that was a lie.
No, why would, I think it's really harsh to use words like that. I really do.
Okay.
Because you are allowed for policy changes.
So it's a change. Okay.
You're allowed, and to think of a minister and say the minister lied.
Okay, he spoke untruth.
I'm not sure. No, I'm not trying to get sort of terminological inexactitudes as a way to replace a lie with an untruth. We have come up with a new budget, and we have a certain direction, and this is what I have stated, that it's going to happen.
Okay.
Okay. So I don't think you should do that.
So it's a change in policy that you say.
Not change, but
the initial policy was that you're not going to get involved.
Let me move ahead of it. I have listened to the debate on the National Cathedral, and I get extremely nervous about it because I have stayed in this country and seen how judges' residences, civil servants' residences have been given to the private sector to make money in Laboni or whatever. And then we talk about giving a piece of this land of ours to God. And I just really, for 60 years of such a blessed nation, we missed Ebola, we missed civil wars, and we are the pillar of stability.
I guess the question was being candid.
No, not about the candid one.
It's a change in policy.
No, not about the candid one, something. I'm going beyond that.
Okay.
To try to understand the brouhaha about a national cathedral being done for this country.
I don't want questions about.
So then let's move on.
What underpins whether or not it should be done?
So really, Samson, let's move on.
So what is involved in the funding for the preparatory works and the seed money? What is involved? How much is in that?
We haven't determined how much we will do.
Okay.
But right. We will. There's nothing that will not come to Parliament once that decision is done. And
under protecting the public purse, you spoke about the money to the 180 million to the special prosecutor. The question being asked is, when exactly, can you be sure when that money will be available to him?
When is the money available to everybody in the budget?
Right.
In January we start appropriations.
Okay.
I've had meetings with Mr. Amidu, and this is not an inconsequential appointment, and the significance for the nation going forward. Because I had some conversations with Martin, and he's saying, Ken, when we look at the cleaning that occurred in Singapore and Hong Kong, because of the centrality of the role of an institution such as the Office of Special Prosecutor, it is remarkable when one looks at the leakages and the many people who participate in that, to have the sort of Damocles hanging for everybody to know that, you know, things are not going to be as they used to be. For me, it's so critical for my domestic mobilization, and I'm going to do everything to make sure that it succeeds.
Industry is complaining about high tax margins. Has the government abandoned the mantra of moving away from taxation to production?
I'd like to know specifically.
And this is from Eric. I mean, someone who has sufficient knowledge in the area of economics.
Yeah, he should tell me what it is. I know that since I came, I have brought inflation down, which is a tax on business. I know that the macroeconomy is much more stable, which would have been a tax on business. I know, in effect, foreign exchange has been much more stable than in the past, which would have been a tax on business. I have reduced electricity prices by 30%, which would have been a tax on business. Yes, I know it's not perfect, but I also would like the acknowledgement about those things that are being done and how quickly, you know, because he will be right in a certain extent, how quickly can we move out of it for him to feel a lot better than
the cost of the free SHS is swallowing or almost swallowing about 2/3 of the ABFA amounts. Are we not by this infringing on the PRMA law? What happens to the program if oil prices fall again?
What happens if oil prices fall again? Samson, we are spending, I think it was $1.2 billion maybe last year, and it's 1.7 billion this year. You know, so for a nation to focus on the issue of building of our human capital into the future, as opposed to, Ken, why don't you, you know, get more revenue with properties? Why don't I pay more, etc.? I think it's misplaced. You know, no one should be like, I grew up in the village, okay? And thank God my dad decided that, oh, you know, join me in Legon, and then I began Legon Primary and Achimota School, etc. And it's a sea change from my colleagues in JB Government School, okay? So I think the ideas would be more like, okay, where do we look to adjust? Okay. How do we pay more taxes so that we can fund this? Because the principle of developing our human capital as the president wants it, it's not going to change.
Okay. What would be your final words? You say that the focus of this government over the last 22 months has not just been restoration of macroeconomic stability, but you have implemented a number of flagship policies as well as social intervention policies that have reduced the suffering as well as enhanced the aspirations and opportunities of Ghanaians. Find a nice way of ending on that note, explaining exactly what you mean. Just yesterday I needed to buy my data because my data on Selfline was running out. I used to buy the 30-day one. I bought it for $299. I'm buying it for $350. There are others whose prices are quite high. Of course, I know how much it costs me to fill my 3-liter tank.
Yeah.
So in my reality, the suffering you say you have reduced and enhanced in a way my prospects, I may not particularly appreciate it.
I think, you know, and maybe the challenge for the educated class is to ask about the consequences of inflation spiraling, of very unstable foreign exchange rate, and of increasing bank lending rates. To really appreciate that without that anchor, you know, the issues of sachet water has gone up from maybe 20 to 25 pesos, or your bundle has increased. At the same time, maybe the average citizen is getting 2,000 cedis from paying his child's school fees. And maybe those are the sacrifices that we talk about.
Okay.
But are we going in the right direction? And is this government showing faith with the people that we had? And for me, it's quite clear and unequivocal. I mean, people walk a lot more proudly now than they do. I hear the middle class when we go out with that. And I see the person in Chibi who now can take their kid to school. So yes, you know, that there will be these marginal issues. But on the broad side, I think one will be proud of one's country in terms of what we are doing for this sharing to be pervasive for all. But I think going forward, as we have said, the issue now of transformation is at hand. But a key part of it is, what are we as a people going to do to participate in this new reality? And for me, as I sit there, that is my constant, you know, pain and work to see it happen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta. Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta is the Finance Minister, and we will be joined shortly by Mr. Seth Tepe, former Finance Minister. We will also be joined by Kweku Kwating, who is with Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta. We have loads more questions to ask, and also Professor Bokpeng will join us. So we'll continue with the many questions that you have brought forward that you desired for Mr. Ken Ofori-Atta to answer them for you. We'll continue with that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate the time.